What happens when we finally make the choice to stop thinking and feeling shame, anger, or hatred for a single day? This decision is really no different than what happens when we decide to go on a diet, to cut out a particular food, or to try to stop a habit like smoking or drinking. Deciding to stop feeling shame takes as much intention and will as it does to stop doing any of these other actions. Once our will is engaged in overcoming our thoughts, it's as if we wake the body from its slumber, and it hasn't had its morning cup of coffee. In this case, its fix of shame, for instance. As a result, the body starts to voice its displeasure to the brain. What do you mean you aren't getting your shame chemicals? Whose smart idea was this? What starts out as subtle urges and cravings from the body in the form of an impulsive thought, usually, when not carried out, turns into a louder and louder internal monologue that pleads for an immediate action. The body goes into chaos as a result of this chemical deprivation and its inability to return to its homeostatic state. It does not want to recalibrate itself because it has grown accustomed to the overchange of receptor sites dedicated to shame. The body has been calling the shots for quite a while, and now it feels out of control. At this point, we will be bombarded with all kinds of urges. The chatter in our head will be clamoring to be heard, to make us feel shame. We know that voice that we unconsciously respond to every day. We listen to it and act as if it is the gospel of our own inner guidance. Many times it can talk us out of anything, even our greatness. When we are in the midst of change, it nags and whines the loudest. It says things like, "You can start tomorrow. Go ahead, this is a great reason to break your promise with yourself. Any other time but this one. And my favorite, this just doesn't feel right." Then we say, "I have to trust my feelings because I'm so in tune with them." And of course we rationalize ourselves back to the starting point. The voice that we are listening to is our body telling us to restore internal order and stop the suffering and discomfort it was feeling. We can surely identify with this because most of us have tried to break a habit or to fast from a particular type of food, like chocolate, for example. We start our resolutions with good intentions. But in a matter of hours, we begin to remember all our past experiences when we ate chocolate. We begin to think about Mom's famous double dark devil's food cake. Out of nowhere, we recall the time we ate chocolate-covered strawberries on our honeymoon and how delicious they were. In a moment, we're remembering the time we were laid over in the airport in Brussels for 4 hours, and we had 3 desserts, all made of Belgian chocolate. While we are thus being coerced into this kind of mindset by what appears to be some demon, what if, in the next second, life presents us with the opportunity for a bit of Mother's chocolate cake? The second we set our eyes on the cake, our body responds immediately, maybe even salivates. Next, we begin to hear those sub-vocalizations that I just mentioned, egging us on to forget about what we intellectually decided earlier in the day and to consume the whole cake. We're not consciously thinking those thoughts. They come from our body, telling us what to think and do. As soon as our body becomes chemically stimulated by the sight of the dessert, it causes us to think about what it wants. When we are willfully changing an emotional state, we will react the same way to loud and adamant messages from our body. Perhaps one day you intellectually decide to no longer be a victim. You start your day with great intentions, but by the middle of the day, while driving to do an errand for your job, you begin to think about how your husband hurt your feelings the day before. You think of all the other times in the last 30 years he hurt you by his unconscious actions. You are now starting to feel bad. You catch yourself, but an inner voice starts telling you to forget about what you originally committed to because you'll never change. You're just not strong enough. And besides, your mother was abusive to you as a child, so that's why you were the way you are. You can't stop. Those scars are just too deep. What are you going to do? If you respond to these thoughts, you are headed for a release of a lot of chemicals that will reinforce who you have always been. If you stop your automatic thoughts, you will feel very uncomfortable with not being your normal, habitually thinking self. To top it off, what if this day, all the reasons to be a victim start falling from the heavens? You fall off your porch in the morning. Someone at work decides to claim the week that you wanted for your vacation time. When you walk out of the supermarket, someone has hit your car door and dented it. Now you have even more reasons to feel like a victim. The body is egging you on to take the first step so you can reaffirm your neurochemical self. If you decide to respond to the internal chatter and act on it, you will restore yourself to a state that seems more comfortable. There is a greater level of familiar comfort in being a victim than the discomfort of being a victim, and the discomfort of not being one as well. Running the loop. When all this is cascading through our brain and our body, here is what is happening. Once the homeostatic continuity of our body is altered because we no longer think the same way or react to the same set of circumstances, the cells of the body get together and gang up. They send a message to that particular neural net to fire a certain level of mind so that we can make the right kind of chemicals to keep the body in balance, controlled, and moderated. If the receptor sites are not getting the regular peptides of familiar emotions, and those cells sense a change in normal balance, they will send a message through the peripheral nerves to the spinal cord, to the brain. They will be calling to say, "Hey, what's going on up there? It's been a little too long for you to not feel like a victim. Can you start firing those thoughts that will make the chemicals so that everything returns to normal? Equally, the self-monitoring feedback loop between the limbic brain and the body, which is filtering volumes of blood through the hypothalamus, notices that levels are dropping and tries to readjust the body's internal chemistry back to our normal, victimized self by making the right type of peptides. All this occurs in a matter of a few unconscious moments, and the next thing we know, we're thinking the way we're feeling really bad, which due to its dependency may actually be interpreted as really good by the body. It seems that as we fall prey to those urges, voices, or cravings, we can't stop the process of emoting. It is as though we can't just eat one bite of the chocolate cake, we eat the whole cake. Have you ever noticed that when you were in an emotional storm and you felt frustrated, you felt angry? And when you were angry, you hated. When you hated, you were judgmental, and when you were judgmental, you were jealous. When you were jealous, you became envious, and when you were envious, you became insecure. As you felt insecure, you became unworthy, and when you were unworthy, you felt badly. When you felt badly, you felt guilty. That's eating the whole cake, because like an addict, you could not stop until you totally stimulated the body to a chemically higher level for a greater rush. As the chemical brain turned on all its emotional peptides and altered your internal chemistry, you activated those related neural networks that house associated memories. You created all the levels of mind that matched each chemical thought with a feeling. The body became an unbridled horse, running out of control. This is where our will and self-discipline have to kick in. We need to achieve mastery over ourselves. But can we? Do we cave in and let in the flood of long-term memories that define us and reaffirm our old self? Or do we stand fast in our commitment to avoid thoughts and feelings of victimization? Do we settle for immediate relief? Or can we willfully hold on to a greater vision of the self, in spite of what we are feeling? In any case, the conscious mind is now trying to establish its authority over the body. The tables just may be turning. As another example, by seeing a certain movie character that reminds us of a person we used to know, the show is activating an associated neural network that is tied to former experiences, and that network has a certain feeling in the form of chemicals. When the chemicals are released from the appropriate neural net, we become aware that we are missing that person in our reality. And we now feel worse. In essence, the whole neural network fires, which makes us think about what we do not have in our reality. As a result, all that thinking is just creating more of the feeling and awareness of what we do not have. That hurts.